I had never been one for the supernatural. My friend's isolated cabin, nestled deep in the mountain woods, seemed like the perfect retreat from the chaos of the city. The promise of quiet solitude was too tempting to resist, even if it meant enduring the deep chill of a mid-December snowstorm. As soon as I arrived, the snow began falling heavily, swallowing the world in a thick, white silence. The cabin, a quaint and somewhat dilapidated structure, creaked with every gust of wind. Inside, I lit the fire in the stone hearth, the flames offering a warm, flickering glow that contrasted starkly with the darkness outside. The wind howled through the trees, a mournful sound that seemed to seep through the walls. The air inside was heavy, thick with the scent of old wood and pine. Wrapped in a woolen blanket, I settled into an armchair with a book, hoping to enjoy the peaceful night. But as the hours passed, the wind grew more insistent, its howls turning into a chorus of eerie whispers. Around midnight, a particularly harsh gust shook the cabin, making the flames in the hearth flicker wildly. That's when I heard it. A soft, almost inaudible whisper, like someone murmuring just outside the door. I shook it off, blaming it on the wind, but the whispers persisted, growing more distinct. They seemed to be calling my name, faint and desperate. Unable to ignore the growing sense of unease, I wrapped myself in my coat, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped out into the storm. The snow was blinding, the flakes thick and relentless. The world outside was a ghostly white void, illuminated only by the beam of my flashlight. As I ventured away from the cabin, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if something, or someone, was trying to guide me deeper into the forest. I followed the sound, my footsteps muffled by the snow, until I stumbled upon a series of small footprints, barely noticeable against the blanket of snow. They seemed to lead further into the woods. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of fear and curiosity driving me forward. The forest was unnervingly silent, save for the whispers that seemed to swirl around me, growing louder with each step. The tracks led to a small, isolated clearing where an ancient, crumbling well stood. The well was half buried in snow, its stone walls covered in a thick layer of moss and grime. The whispers were now unmistakably coming from within the well, pleading, desperate voices that seemed to beg for release. Compelled by a mix of terror and curiosity, I leaned over the edge of the well, shining my flashlight into the darkness. The beam revealed nothing but an abyss, the darkness so complete that it seemed to absorb the light. The whispers grew more frantic, their pleas escalating into frantic cries. I pulled back, shaking, and turned to head back to the cabin. But something had changed. The footprints I had followed had vanished, replaced by a fresh set of larger, menacing tracks that seemed to circle the clearing, closing in on me. My breath came in ragged gasps as I turned and sprinted through the snow, the feeling of being followed growing stronger with each step. The cabin loomed in the distance, a solitary refuge amidst the storm. I burst through the door, slamming it shut behind me. The warmth of the fire was now a distant comfort. The whispers had followed me inside, now echoing through the cabin. They were louder than before, a cacophony of tortured voices that seemed to reverberate off the walls. In a frenzy, I turned on the old radio, hoping to drown out the voices. The static crackled before an eerie voice emerged, its tone cold and distant. It recited names of people who had stayed in the cabin before me. Each name was followed by a chilling message: lost forever. Panic set in. I grabbed my phone to call for help, but the signal was dead. The only connection to the outside world was now cut off. The whispers turned into a deafening roar, the sound seemingly coming from all directions. Shadows danced on the walls, twisted and grotesque, as the fireplace flickered erratically. The footsteps outside grew louder, accompanied by a haunting, mocking laughter that seemed to seep through the walls. The snow had stopped falling, but the night was still. The oppressive silence was broken only by the sound of my own frantic heartbeat. Desperate, I grabbed my keys and fled to the car. The engine roared to life, but as I backed out of the driveway, my heart nearly stopped. The snow had been disturbed, revealing new tracks leading straight to the cabin. The tracks were unmistakably human, yet too large and distorted to be natural. I sped through the storm, the snow blurring my vision, the whispers still echoing in my mind. When I reached the nearest town, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of something lurking just beyond the edge of the darkness. I stayed there, shaken and unable to explain what I had experienced. To this day, I refuse to return to that cabin, or even speak of what happened. I've learned that some places, some nights, are better left undisturbed. If you ever find yourself alone in a snowstorm and hear whispers in the wind, whatever you do, don't follow them. Some things are better left unknown, buried deep beneath the snow.